An extravagant villa, an edifice to himself, he raised taxes and stole money from the local temples. In one of his last moves, he reinstated a policy that allowed him to confiscate property from anyone suspected of treason. Of course, he alone decided who was suspected of treason. In 65 A.D., Nero discovered a plot to assassinate him, so he killed many of those involved, including former advisors and close friends. Now he was universally hated. Nero had no friends left. He had killed them all. When his own army deserted him, he knew it was time to flee. Nero was assailed by his enemies for being greedy, frivolous, and self-indulgent, and the Senate ordered him to be beaten to death. In his own defense, he claimed to be an artist who was misunderstood. As he heard the hoofbeats of the horses bearing the men ordered to carry out his execution, Nero refused to give them the satisfaction and ended his life by suicide. Nero was the fifth Roman emperor, succeeding Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, and Claudius in that order. These emperors succeeded a series of authoritarian leaders who had gradually transformed Rome from a republic to a dictatorship. Much of the political foundation for the rise of dictators and emperors, including Nero, had been laid 90 years earlier during the populist dictatorship of Julius Caesar, who ruled from 49 to 44 B.C. Most dictatorships emerge out of other authoritarian governments, as happened after the French Revolution, which began in 1789, and the Russian Revolution in 1917. Rome was one of two examples in history of a major economic and military power being transformed from a republic into a dictatorship. The second example was the transformation of the Weimar Republic into Nazi Germany in 1933. Our objective in writing this book is to help make sure there is not a third. King George III. Great Britain's King George was not as horrific a leader as Nero, but like Nero, he was very much focused on his authority as king, and he reacted to political unrest in petty and destructive ways. George's reaction to instability in the American colonies in large part precipitated the American Revolution. George was 12 when his father died and left him heir to the throne. When he became king, he had no previous government experience. Born wealthy, he'd never worked for anyone else. Though he was commander-in-chief, he had never served in the military. Though George was frugal, cheap even, he advocated importing cheap labor to drive down wages and increase profits. He spent lavishly on his new royal palace, Buckingham House. George's family had immigrated to Great Britain from Hanover, Germany, to become its rulers after the death of Queen Anne, the last of the Stuart monarchs. Many British citizens, including nobility, saw the Hanoverian dynasty as foreigners. Indeed, both King George I and II spoke imperfect English. George III was obsessed with proving himself to be British, proclaiming, "I glory in the name of Britain," when he ascended to the throne. Many witnesses described George's pathological mania. They spoke of his incessant loquacity and his habit of talking until the foam ran from his mouth. Sometimes he suffered from convulsions, and his pages had to sit on him to keep him safe on the floor. The press accused George of preferring war to peace and of restricting the liberties of English citizens. His advisor was George Grenville, an ultra-conservative Whig politician. King George saw America as a parent saw a child. If America was disobedient, George felt, it must be punished. During a period of financial difficulty for England, Grenville advised George to make the colonies pay their own administrative costs. The colonies were going to pay for their protection and well-being. First came the Stamp Act in 1765, and then indirect taxes on the colonies from the Townshend Acts. When, in 1773, Britain passed the Tea Act, called the Intolerable Acts in America, imposing yet another tax, the colonies united in protest and tossed the tea into the harbor. Faced with such disobedience, George declared, "The colonies must either submit or triumph. We must not retreat." 2 years later,